Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. I come to you every week with my analysis of the world based on Vedic astrology. Uh, to give my background again, I'm a former president of the Council of Vedic Astrology, former vice president of the Council of Vedic Astrology. I was vice president before I was president. I've been an astrologer for over 30 years, 32 years to be precise. And I've also been interested in astrology since I was a young boy. That wasn't intended to scare you. I was just adjusting in my seat. Also I've been I am a Swami of the symbol of Kriya Yoga and the Kriya Yoga lineage, and I've been a transcendental meditator. Tarot. I read tarot cards. I'm also a Reiki master. Yes, and I know a bunch of things about a bunch of things. So it doesn't make me the all-seeing master of time and space, but I know I've been around this world for a long time, and I've studied it, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work that well. And I'm also currently working on developing my own school or furthering my own school. I do take students directly. I also do readings for people. You can contact me for readings or for school or for Reiki or for initiation into meditation at 508-525-0001. I have written and spoken internationally. I've been to England, Turkey, Bulgaria. You should see now. And I've lectured on Zoom in many countries around the world, including England and at the Astrological Lodge. And I'm also a teacher for about the past 15 years at Kepler College. And also for the past I say about around 18 years at the American College of Vedic Astrology. I was also one of the first people in New England to teach and study Vedic astrology, not the first, but one of the first. And I also have other academic credentials. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Mass Amherst, master's degree in business administration from UMass Dartmouth, and a doctoral degree in education from Northeastern University. And I'm working on a book right now. I think I said that before. I've written numerous articles, and which have been published both in hard copy and virtually. So I've been around the block a few times. That doesn't make me the smartest guy in the world. It's just really a way of letting you know what my background is and what my qualifications are. It doesn't mean I get everything right 100% of the time, but my record's been pretty good. Looking at last week, I did predict some problems in England, and I recall looking at problems, seeing some problems in France, and there are wildfires now in Western Europe and various other parts, and that's because of a Mars-Rahu conjunction, which is occurring right now. I think one of the things you have when you look at an astrology map, and I use Vedic astrology now, Western astrology, when I do these broadcasts, although I am fairly proficient in both. I prefer Vedic because I think it covers more territory more quickly. I I have nothing against Western astrology. Vedic's just a more natural language for me to speak. I think one of the things that happens about Vedic astrology is you can look at day-to-day changes very, very quickly and very, very easily by looking at nakshatra changes or lunar mansions. Also, Vedic has a long-standing system of what are called upayas or remedial measures. So you can chant mantras to planets or do certain acts or special rituals which can help increase or increase the positive energy or decrease the negative energy of that particular part of your chart. And these are time-tested traditions. Some of them have to be done by priests. Some of them you can do yourselves. So it depends on your budget. If you have a lot of money, you can have somebody else do your work for you. If you don't have a lot of money, which is pretty much the way the world is, so you do the work yourself. I think sometimes if you do the work yourself, you don't have an expert doing it, but you have somebody who's more invested in seeing that you improve than if you go to an outsider. The advantage of the outsider doing it is the outsider's trained in these things, and the outsider can do it more quickly. So I'll be talking more about that in coming lectures. Some things you don't have to do anything about; they'll just take care of themselves. And this summer, the main thing I'm worried about is violence and illness. It's just in terms of the chart. So I'm going to show you the chart. Although there are some good things happening, obviously, there are always good things and bad things happening in the world. So at least from this chart, we have, so actually it's a good time for gains. This is a Virgo rising chart. This is an Indian chart. I'm going to close it down and start over again, mainly because I found that Zoom doesn't always work on first try, especially sharing a screen, and then do it a third time. And these usually run about an hour. I try to make them run about an hour. I'm probably going to be putting up some shorter videos, which will be more specific and more contemporary. I've stopped sharing them to various places like Facebook over the and LinkedIn and sites like that, and even not Quora, although I have showed them to Quora and Instagram, mainly because I've had a lot of personal obligations that I've had to face over the past few weeks. So if you as subscribers could share those, I greatly appreciate it. Also, if you can subscribe, it would greatly help me in terms of building up this space, getting to subscription levels where I could approach monetization and also approach also get a wider spread on good information as to what's happening in the world, because I think what we see many times is we see panic, and we see at least one thing that's distressed me a lot has been about what I like to call big event astrology, and what I mean by that is, this is going to be a major shock or a major revelation, and a lot of times that doesn't really happen. Those things are rarer than usual, but there is a conjunction I'll talk about, which is rather dangerous. But it's not as dangerous as some people are making out, because the more destructive aspect. A more destructive aspect has been taken out of the picture, so I'll explain that in a second. But this chart, let's go over the chart. I don't want to get too confusing. Let's go over the chart. So the first Lord, so we'll do a chart analysis right now. This is the chart as I'm speaking to you right now. And this is the state of affair in the world right now. So the first house Lord is Mercury is in the 11th house, along with the Sun. And Sun and Mercury are really close together. So that's going to cause some, it's what's called a Cazimi Mercury. So Mercury's almost always close to the Sun. So Sun being really close to Mercury isn't all that horrible. But over the next few days, communications are going to get really, really scrambled. And the reason I'm saying that is because shortly, this Cazimi relationship, this within 1 degree relationship, will shift. And that's a Middle Eastern concept, by the way, not a Hindu concept. But everybody borrows from each other. And I think, especially in terms of the government, you're going to see the government just sort of stall out, as it has been over the past few months. Just stalled out, and really almost oppressive in the way it's been doing things. I'm not necessarily talking about the U.S. government in particular, but this the Mercury's in the same sign as it was when the U.S. was founded. And so the press is going to have a field day talking with the government. And this will be true in every country. Because Saturn is aspecting this combination, and if we want to include Pluto, and I'll include Pluto in this case, there'll be, I'm just trying to think of a good way to say it, a lot of panic, a lot of fear generated by this particular combination. So this applies not only to the inquiry about January 6th, but also about what's happening in terms of the elections, the midterm elections, and also the economy. So that's Saturn aspecting the Sun. And Mercury is going to make the press depressed. I didn't intend for it to come out that way. It's going to make people kind of sad, doubtful. Saturn is also the most prominent planet in this chart because it's aspecting 1, 2, 3 planets. So it's aspecting Jupiter and the Sun, and if we want to call it K2 a planet as well, it's also aspecting K2. So these are all relative drags on the economy, on reputation, on trade, on the efficiency of governments. Again, not just in the United States, but all around the world. Okay. This period will only last for about a month. It'll seem longer, but it'll only last for about a month, in which you'll start to see some financial growth and some financial rebound. But the trigger is we are going to be in a recession probably in the fall, starting this summer and going until around January of 2023. And that's mainly because of Saturn moving back into Capricorn. And so even though the financial figures aren't that bad right now, they'll seem very bad over the next few months. And that Saturn aspecting Jupiter certainly doesn't help because that minimizes optimism, even though Jupiter's, it's sort of like right in the middle of the sign, so it's very, very strong. Jupiter's in the 7th house from Virgo. It tends to be very good for contact with advisors or consultants, but it also does tend to give problems to relationships. Okay, so a lot of relationship partners may be sick or may be seeing doctors, and also relationships with other countries will be in bad shape. And again, this won't just be the United States, although I am talking from the perspective of a person who lives in the United States. It won't just be the United States, it'll be all around the world. So you'll see a lot of emphasis on diplomacy, a lot of emphasis on trying to make things better between countries. but ultimately failing, and really failing until next January. We have this Mars-Rahu conjunction, which is really the dangerous one that I was talking about, because Mars is in Bharani Nakshatra, which is considered to be a very difficult nakshatra, and so is Rahu. Now, Mars, really around mid-August, Mars and Rahu will be pretty much exactly conjunct. I should get you the actual day. I apologize, but this Mars-Rahu conjunction is really kind of like amped up macho combination. So whenever you see that kind of a combination, people are trying to prove themselves or posture. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean the war in the Ukraine will break or that the Soviet Union may do something stupid, but it may. You know, Soviet Union has been doing some stupid things over the past few months, but it also doesn't mean a nuclear war. But you are going to see more acts of violence, assassination, riots. So what we saw over the past couple of weeks in England, although it didn't involve a riot, it involved a prime minister stepping down. There are problems in France with Macron about Uber drivers. You know, that's the story that I've heard. There are problems in some of the governments around the world, like Sri Lanka just lost its or its president was forced to resign. And you're going to see a lot of countries around the world will analyze where having to step down or having to face public fury. And this is also, I think we're also going to see protests getting out of control around early August throughout September. I think it'll be fascinating to see the effect it has on the elections, because if we go ahead to, let's say, for the election day, November 5th, I think, this year. Let me see if I'm right about that. Let's see in a couple of seconds. Oh, sorry. I mean, November 7th. I'm just testing this out. It's November 7th is Monday. So November 2nd is the first. Yeah, November 1st. First. And so if we go to November 1st, the country will be generally ticked off. Jupiter will be retrograde around that time. As a matter of fact, an important event's happening July 27th. Jupiter's going retrograde July 27th. So there'll be a lot of reconsideration of events. That'll favor the Republicans. This combination will favor the Republicans getting back into office. The retrograde Jupiter, it usually indicates retrying things or trying things over again. Saturn is strong in the chart, so I wouldn't rule the Democrats holding seats, positions of power. So it may not be a wave like some Republicans are predicting, but the Republicans will have an advantage. The other thing is, so let's go back. I'm going to sell this. So we don't know what the outcome of the January 6th hearings what the effect of that's going to be. We don't know what the effect of Roe versus Wade is going to be, but that's both of those aren't going to make big changes in non-urban areas in the country. That's I think what the interesting thing about it is. So it's going to energize, those things will energize the Democrats, which tend to be centered in cities, but they won't make a difference to the counties, to the smaller counties around the country. But I think things like pricing will, I think things like inflation will, and but one of the things we're seeing right now is Venus is in Gemini, and it's the Lord of the second house. So there'll be money enough around this summertime. So even though there may be some inflationary pressure and some pressure towards a recession, you really won't feel it for a couple of months. Okay. The inflationary pressure is going to be there. The pressure towards a recession won't be there. And I'm just getting a really strong sense of deja vu. This is a little bit like what I encountered in the late 60s, early 70s, when the United States was in a K2 major planetary period, and always coming out of a K2 major planetary period, entering a Venus major planetary period. And there was, we had a disgraced former president leave office. We had an Arab oil embargo. We had years of racial tension in the cities. We had years of women's rights protests, and also a lot of the language which is coming out right now, especially regarding lesbian, gay, bi, TG, I can't remember the transgender, I'm sorry, transgender. Right, I heard a lot of the same language in the early 1970s. You know, so if I seem a little jaded, it's maybe because I'm old. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but it's just sort of like a recycle. You know, nothing's ever exactly the same. It seems sort of like a recycle of the late 60s, early 70s. And planetarily, Saturn definitely has something to do with it. The lunar nodes definitely have something to do with it, because the lunar nodes were in similar positions in the 60s. Or in the early 70s, excuse me. And definitely Saturn was in a similar position up until around 1960. I want to say 1970. So it's a disruptive time for the country or the world in general. If you look at the world news, you'll see that economically, people aren't just afraid here or upset here. They're upset around the world. This is not normal. And whenever you have this Mars Rahu conjunction like this, with K2 aspecting, and Saturn aspecting the Sun, governments are going to suffer in some way, shape, or form. So this, as I said before, Aries is pretty much the penultimate leadership sign. The Sun is sitting in a royal sign right now. It'll be in another royal sign in a few weeks. Both Saturn and Mars are aspecting the Sun right now for the next 4 weeks. So you'll see a lot of disruption, a lot of governmental disruption, a lot of people feeling very uncomfortable about their future. And I think one of the things about this is something which has been developing for years. It's not a new thing, but people need a villain in a drama. And So I'm not saying that facetiously. I'm just saying that as a realist. So people will look for somebody to blame. So let's look at the person when this major planetary period of the United States happened, Rahu was in the same position it was when the Revolutionary War began. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the United States is going to have a revolutionary war or even a civil war. But it does mean there'll be a lot of disruptions over the next 15 years internationally. Not because the United States is so damn important, but because the United States is still the largest economy in the world. It affects things in other countries much more so than any other country. Well, China, the second largest, is going through some economic problems too, and there are open protests in China right now. So the banks are under attack in China. I don't know if you've seen that. So I find that fascinating. So let's go to the time and space map. And let's see if we can see where things are happening. Oops, I don't like that. Why does it do that? I'm not sure why it does that. Gonna close this little guy down and try for the time and space map again. Oh, there he is. Yeah, it's a little guy. Oh, that's funny. Let's get out of there. All right, let's get this close. And we're gonna try that again. Sorry, folks. It's a relatively new program. I know it looks like the same program, but it's relatively new. So let me see if I can get this. Yep. 1 second. Okay. Let me see if I can get this a little closer to the center. Right. So this is a little tougher to see, but at least we can see it. Let's go back here. Like that map. We'll get it. All right. So this is a little bit bigger than what we normally have. let's go a little bit over to the United States. And we'll start in the regular parts. Okay. So there's nothing really interfering with Hawaii. There's Mercury's near Hawaii, but it's really not a significant Mercury, Sun, Venus, Moon. So these really aren't bad placements. The Moon is a little bit wonky. And I apologize for using that word, but it's a little bit off because of being so close to Saturn, but it's not really a bad moon, at least from this chart. The sun is out in the ocean somewhere, so it's really not affecting Hawaii all that much. There's a Saturn line heading hitting over on the western part of Canada, up near Alaska. So that part will have some bad weather or some economic depression, and that news will be covered. Also, if you look over here, there's a Venus Sun line over here. So this will give some economic pressure up near Washington State and also into mid-Canada. Canada is going to be going through some tough economic times. There aren't a lot of lines intersecting the United States, if you notice. There's just really, it looks like two main lines. One's a Jupiter line moving through Mexico, and the other one's a Mars line. So this section over here, watch out for earthquakes or watch out for damage to that part of the world or fights in that part of the world. Also in the United States, there is a lot of fighting going on, a lot of potential for violence in all through the panhandle of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Western Maryland, and this kind of extends to these areas too. And I'm just looking for like little spots here, and also through New York State. So we can expect some urban violence this coming week. The other line right here is a line which is close. Let me see if I can shrink it down a little bit. It's just close to, need to get it down a little more. Basically, my God, there. So we have some. All right, it's a little bit too far of a zoom out. Zoom in. Click. So we have some Mercury, Sun, and Venus lines happening off the coast of. It's a little bit tight. There we go. That's a little better. All right, much better. We have some Mercury, Sun, Venus lines happening in Guyana, all the way through Brazil, and all the way down into not Chile, excuse me, into and some Moon and Saturn lines running down to Brazil and to Paraguay and Uruguay and Argentina. My apologies. And down here, which I believe is, say it's Colombia or Venezuela. Can't remember which. I should know that. That really irritates me that I don't know that. But basically, this combination right here, there'll be a lot of news out of this part of the world. And there's a Rahu line, so there'll be a little bit of panic in central Brazil and central and all the way down towards the southeastern tip of Brazil. The other line you want to look at is the Saturn line heading up through Brazil as well, and the moon line. And this is actually heading up more towards the UK, if you can see right here, and Scotland. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And it's really not a good picture, but basically, if you start going up to Europe, you'll see a lot of activity, Jupiter, Mars. So this is where and there are fires in this part of the country, and that's the sun line heading down there. And so southwestern Europe, those fires will persist for a few weeks, unfortunately. And there's a Mars line, which is really Sun and Mars are surrounding Europe. So Europe's going to feel like it's in terrible trouble over the next couple of months, I think. And there's a moon line I have to caution a little bit further, heading towards Moon and Mercury line heading through Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Germany. So there'll be a lot of trade issues going on there, a lot of trade negotiations, trying to figure out how to get oil. Egypt, the Sudan, all the way down to Mozambique. You'll see a lot of trade issues. If we look at Western Africa, there's a Mars line running through Libya and Morocco, and that's not auspicious. That's not really good. And it also includes Spain and the UK. So I'm a little worried about Spain, the UK, and most of Northern Africa. Is especially Western Northern Africa, because of all this potential for violence over here because of Mars and Rahu and the moon. Finally, if we go over here to, this is Turkey, I believe. Turkey's right here. There are no lines in Turkey, but there are Mercury lines, it looks like. And there's also a moon line on the eastern part of Turkey, excuse me, and also Saturn line. So there should be some suffering between Turkey, Iran, and Syria. Also, if we go over to here, and this is roughly Eastern Europe, so those countries will be a little bit prone to, and I want to say earthquakes, not because I hate that, but because Mercury is also connected with earthquakes. So this kind of intense action, maybe within about a week, we'll see some earthquake activity in Eastern Europe and Eastern Turkey. The other part we have right here is it's really long, and it's really tough to see this really long Mars line heading through Afghanistan and Pakistan and into India. So there may be there have always been tensions between Pakistan and India. These may flare up, and there may also be domestic problems in Sri Lanka again, and also in Western India. If we go over here, Russia has a Mars line. Is that a Mars line? That's a moon line, excuse me. A moon line running through it. And I think what this indicates, the line we have right here is, I have to look carefully, this is a sun line. So there'll be some opposition in the government. There'll be some proposed change in government. I don't think it'll be successful because the sun and moon are so weak right now. But I think you'll see the start of some kind of desire for change in order in Russia. Now this moon line is going to run into all through China, all down to Taiwan and So there'll be a lot of attention focused on China, a lot of attention focused on the economy starting to recover, but not really that great. Okay. And this will be through government coercion. It won't be through people voluntarily being willing to comply. It'll essentially be the government suppressing the people. Now, again, this is not to be taken, I'm not necessarily picking on China because that's their background. I think a lot of these sun-moon combinations we're seeing over here, especially over in Europe, you may see mandatory crackdowns on the West Coast again, mandatory disease crackdowns, and all through these countries, all through this stretch between like roughly Sweden all the way down to Mozambique and to Madagascar, and also over here, even in Turkey, Iran, Syria, etc. So I think we're certainly not out of the woods with disease control mechanisms or even price controls. I think you're going to see a lot of that stuff starting to come up. And I think you're going to start to see, quote unquote, the starting of a global recession, but it'll be in these countries in Europe and in the Middle East, not so much in China, which is still struggling, and a little bit in Australia. So a lot of the countries that have, and perhaps just a bit in Japan, because in Japan we have this long line here, which is, I believe it's, what the heck is that line? It's really interesting. It's doing something, but I still can't see the line. Okay. So let me shrink it a little bit. Increase it. It's Mars line over here. And over here is a Rahu line, which indicates panic and public panic, especially in Japan, Western Australia, and some real economic depression in Eastern Australia. So this will be fascinating to watch. Mars is aspecting New Zealand, Mars and Jupiter are aspecting New Zealand, so we can expect to see disease spread in that part of the world. All right, so let me get out of this box. I'll figure out how to stop this particular share and go back to the main chart. This is, oops, and this is for 11/1/22. So let's look at, okay. So let's look at, second. Chart, and see if there's any real changes. Okay, so we're going to leave it this size. I'll try to pull it up. All right, so this is, let me see if it's sharing. All right. Yeah, so again, we have restrictive governments in China through Vietnam through Cambodia. Let me start left to right. Sun and some panic in the West Coast. Venus, Moon, some fear about inflation or about supplies. Sun, Mercury, governmental overreach in the eastern United States and throughout South America and into Argentina, and some panic in Brazil and some violence in Brazil too. Also, if we look over to the UK, the moon is going to give some anxiety to Ireland, Spain, Portugal, and Western Africa. Spreads of things, especially like fires in France, and some new potential for fire or for violence in Western Turkey and all the way into Iran and Iraq, and finally economic downturns and some oppressive governmental action in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and some concern coming up in Bengal over India and in Western China. Again, governmental control is very strong. Forced governmental compliance in China is still true. And although Borneo looks okay, Japan looks like it's panicking a little bit. It's starting to feel recessionary pressure. And so is Australia, in terms of energy supplies and things like that. So it should be an interesting couple of weeks. I'm going to stop the share and start it again. Now, I'm going to give you a quick summary of what I see for your charts this week. All right. So essentially, let me just fix this. All right. So for Aries, feeling like wanting to be a little bit more in control than they have to be, some upset, some concern over and some fear, some panic happening in that sign. K2 relationship partners will be difficult or have unexpected illnesses. Stop the share and start again. And Venus is in the 7th house, so there'll be a lot of, Venus is in the 3rd house, so there'll be a lot of fear of taking action. A lot of control issues at home, a lot of issues with children at home, and a lot of communications problems. Career-wise, though, it looks good. Earnings will be up, although career life will be very intense, and there'll be a lot of money spent on education. But Taurus has Venus in the 2nd house, so it's a good month for money. Sun's in the 3rd house. It will make Taurus kind of brave. K2's in the 6th house, not good for trade, not good for new contacts or new business contacts. And they'll be concerned about relationship life, whether or not relationship partners are straying or doing what they're supposed to be doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be cheating all the time. And finally, the moon is in the 10th house, so it does indicate a change of general job responsibilities for Taurus. And Jupiter's in the 11th house. That gives a good indication that there'll be financial gains coming in. Venus is in the 1st house for Gemini, Lugna, and that's really good news for that particular rising sign. It'll give good luck. It'll give renown and fame across the seas, overseas. Sun and Mercury in the second house, good for financial gains. There's an exchange of lords between Venus and between, and I'm sorry, there's not an exchange of lords. But Lord of the first house is in the second house, so that should give good financial gains and good financial progress. K2's in the fifth, some problems of communication with children. Jupiter's in the Lord of the seventh house is in the 10th. It should give good career opportunities for relationship partners. Moon is in the 11th house. Better luck, but from unexpected sources for the sign. And Mars and Rahu are in the 11th house. So friends will be good, but I also wouldn't trust friends too much for this sign. So the friends will be looking to ride on your coattails. For Cancer, Cancer's Lord is in the 8th house, so that indicates the sign feels like it's trapped a little bit. And Saturn aspects the sign, so relationships will feel stable if a bit uninspiring. The other thing to look at is K2's in the 4th house. There'll probably be arguments at home and a lot of obsession about career, although career luck will be good, and gains to relationship partners will be good. For Leo, Leo has the sun in the 12th house, so there'll be a lot of expenses connected with financial matters and improving finances, and also a potential to stray and go outside the home for gratification. 3rd house Lord is Mercury, placed in the 12th house, so there's a strong desire to get away. The 3rd house itself, I'm sorry, the 2nd house Lord is in the 12th house, so there'll be still a strong desire to get away and spend money. K2's in the 3rd house, so this sign will show a lot of courage this month. Saturn's in the 6th house, so this sign should probably be careful about diseases and illnesses. Moon is in the 7th house, could give a change in relationship life. Jupiter's in the 8th, it'll make the sign seem very attractive and very appealing. Mars and Rahu are in the 9th house, and so that's good for financial gains, but also they'll be fleeting. Venus is in the 11th house of gains, so there should be some financial gains for the sign. For Virgo, Virgo has K2 in the 2nd house, so that means money will seem to be blocked or not forthcoming. Saturn is in the 5th house aspect in the 7th house, so this will give this particular sign some weakness in terms of relationship partners. So relationship partners will have illnesses popping up. Mars and Rahu relationship partners will seem to be a little bit sad or down. And Mars aspect in the sun, it'll also give some problems with friends or friends' families. Venus is in the 10th, so career-wise, this sign will actually do pretty good. For Libra, Libra has K2 in the 1st and Rahu and Mars in the 7th house will have that. So there'll be a lot of arguments with relationship partners, a lot of discussions, a lot of uncertainty about whether or not you want to continue in the relationship. Don't make any sudden changes until after mid-August, relationship-wise. Saturn's in the 4th house, still some delay with home matters. Moon is in the 5th, which is a good placement, good for career life, good for expansion of career. And Sun's in the 10th house, but along with Mercury, that gives good luck. That gives positive luck for career life for this sign. Jupiter's in the 6th house. Enemies are quickly overcome or don't pose much of a threat. Mars and Rahu in the 7th house, we've already spoken about this. There's a lot of feeling of dissatisfaction in relationship life. But Venus is in the 9th. You will see a lot, is in the 9th house. You will see a lot of progress and a lot of additional learning for the sun this month. For Scorpio, Scorpio's Lord is in the 6th house. And whenever that happens, this sign has to put a lot of attention on disease and illness, but it'll also defeat enemies rather easily. Saturn is in the third house. Third house Lord is aspecting the fifth house, so children will seem to be a little bit gregarious, difficult to talk to, or difficult to understand. Moon is in the fourth house. There's a lot of emotional problems with this sign. This sign will feel a little bit alienated or unhelped. Sixth house, we already spoke about Mars, Rahu in the sixth house. Venus is in the eighth house. Sign will seem to be very sexy or very powerful. Sun is in the ninth house, so actually good for career growth, but a little bit difficult for health. And Ketu's in the 12th, so a lot of spiritual activity. Finally, Sagittarius has Saturn in the second house, so still slow money growth. Moon is in the third house, so still trying to act very polite and very nice. Jupiter's in the fourth house, and it's a Hamsa yoga, very good, great personality yoga for Jupiter. So this particular sign will be good for financial growth and happiness at home. Mars is in the fifth. Children will be happy, but a little bit greedy. Venus is in the seventh house, so attractive relationship partners or really good looking relationship partners. Also good benefits from business. Sun and Mercury are in the eighth house. The sign will tend to do very well in terms of inherited money. Ketu is in the 11th house. You should watch out for its friends. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Moon in the second house and Jupiter in the third house. So this gives variable flow of money, increased flow of money because of Jupiter. Mars in the seventh house, increased disputes with relationship partners or community. Sun's in the seventh house and Venus is in the sixth house, so a lot of worry or concern about relationship partners and a lot of intensity from relationship partners. Ketu's in the 10th house, not a lot of public recognition for career, but a lot of advancement in career nonetheless. And let's go on to Aquarius. Aquarius has its Lord in the 12th house, so this sign will feel kind of isolated or kind of lonely. Jupiter's in the second house, good for financial gains. Mars and Rahu are in the third house. A lot of courage for this sign, even though it may seem to be they may act a little bit too quickly. Venus is in the fifth house, a lot of potential for romantic partners here. The Lord of the seventh house is in the sixth, so you have to watch out for illnesses, even chronic illnesses to relationship partners. Ketu's in the ninth house, so unexpected changes or shifts in luck. And Saturn in the 12th house, a lot of expenses. Finally, Jupiter, we will go up to Pisces. Jupiter's in the first house, Mars in the second house. A lot of aggravation or aggression for the sign, a lot of force, definitely getting its own way in terms of home life. Children will be difficult. A lot of slow gains for the sign and a lot of focus on career success. So that's it for this week. I have to go. And as always, namaste. I love you all and stay safe, everyone. Don't worry, the best is yet to come.